That's exactly what's happening here. And I asked you, if Republican policies are popular, why do they need to redraw these maps? Why can't they just run on their policies?
I'm getting wrapped on time. I'm enjoying this conversation. I want to let it go on, and I apologize.
So, MAGA Fox News host Will Cain was so utterly humiliated on his own show by Texas Democratic Representative James Talarico that Cain had to wave the white flag of surrender and say, you know what, I would definitely love to do this more, but we gotta end this. And he abruptly ended this heated debate about Texas versus California gerrymandering that he was utterly losing. And we have to talk about this debate. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, Will Cain is somebody we've talked about in previous episodes here, Pondering Politics. He's a MAGA Fox News host. He's a co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend. And to be clear, he's not MAGA in the way that Greg Gutfeld is, or Jesse Waters, excuse me, but he is MAGA nonetheless. And the problem that you will see with Cain in this debate is that even though he is a smart MAGA Fox News host, he finds himself in the same unfortunate position that all MAGA defenders find themselves in, which is they have to grade Trump on a curve in order to try to remain competitive in the debate. Given Trump's intellectual and moral inferiority in every instance against every Democrat, Will Cain has to grade him on a curve. And what you'll see is he imposes a different set of standard on James Talarico and the Democrats. Texas should be able to do whatever the hell they want, says Will Cain, but California and New York can't and shouldn't because it's just a different set of rules. And I want you to hear how he tries to justify what Texas is doing while condemning what Democrats are threatening to do in response.
Both of those efforts in those blue states are contingent on if Texas decides to cheat, if Texas Republicans decide to draw these maps in the middle of the decade at the request of the most powerful man in the country.
So
Again,
you
those
rigged in response to something you call rigging. You cheat in response to something you think is cheating.
I'm trying to listen to you, and I'd love for you to try to give me a chance to speak. You know, I think that all of us should be alarmed, whether we're Democrats, independents, or Republicans, if the most powerful politician in the country, whether it's President Trump or President Obama, if they are trying to change the rules midway through the decade so that they don't have to face accountability for their actions.
So let's just stop right there for just a second. So this is, again, the double standard Will Cain is trying to impose on everybody else. He's like, listen, it's like a game. So if one side cheats, you're just going to cheat too? Yes, Will. Yes, of course. If we're playing a competitive game and one side flagrantly violates the rules, flagrantly, and they won't stop when you ask them to stop, what is the alternative? You play by a total asymmetry in which you will almost certainly lose? Like, again, let's take the sports metaphor aside. Let's use self-defense. That's the example that I use, the metaphor I use with respect to gerrymandering, because I think it's political self-defense what Democrats in Texas, or rather Democrats in California and New York, are proposing. They're not initiating these mid-decade redistricting gerrymanders. Texas did. And because Texas won't stop, California and New York are saying, if you do this, we will defend ourselves by responding in kind. That is eminently, perfectly reasonable. Just like a person can say, I'm not a violent person, I support non-violence, I prefer peace. They're not obligated to not defend themselves if somebody physically attacks them. If you say that you are a pacifist or that you don't like violence, and someone comes up and physically attacks you, you're not obligated to take the ass kicking if they won't stop. Will Cain seems to think that's what Democrats are obligated to do. Texas can do whatever the hell they want, and Democrats in Texas and elsewhere are just obligated to take it, because if they don't, then that feels really bad to Will Cain. It's a moral asymmetry because he knows if he holds Trump and Democrats to the same standard, Will Cain will always lose, and he doesn't like that.
What I would ask you is, if Republican policies are so popular, why do they have to redraw the maps before the election?
Well, my answer to that would be a reflection of political popularity is the number of offices you win and the majority that you enjoy. And right now, Representative, you are a distinct minority in the state of Texas. Your points of view are extremely in the minority. And that is a privilege of the majority. You know, you talk about the president and the left.
So you notice how he doesn't answer the question, and also perfectly reasonable question Talarico's asking, like, hey, if you're so successful, if your cult leader is so damn good and he's so damn popular like you and he claim he is, then why are you so afraid of a competitive election? It's a perfectly reasonable question. Cain knows the answer, which is he knows Trump is unpopular. He knows Trump's policies are unpopular. And he and Trump and most MAGA Republicans are very, very afraid of a competitive midterm election, which they believe Trump will almost certainly lose. And so he totally sidesteps the question and says, well, screw the polls. You know what real popularity is? The positions you hold, the power you have, which, by the way, could be a consequence of gerrymandering, right? And not necessarily a reflection of popular will, but set that aside for a minute. And what he says is, because Texas Democrats are in the minority, they are obligated to just make it easy for Texas Republicans to run roughshod over them because majority rules. Now, as somebody who does agree that majority should rule 8 times out of 10, I think for constitutional amendments and impeachment, you want a supermajority. But other than that, I think that, yeah, majority should get their way. Will Cain doesn't believe that. Will Cain is one of those people who are like, well, the United States isn't a democracy, it's a republic, because Republicans are usually on the wrong side of, majority issues, right? They tend not to win the popular vote. They do sometimes, but most of the time Democrats do. And so when that happens, they're like, well, it's not about majority rules. It's, we got to worry about a tyranny of the majority and we got to protect minority rights. We're in the majority this time. Well, then, Texas Democrats, then you just shut up and you take it. It's so pathetic. It's so pathetic. He betrays his weakness in real time.
Loves to lay everything at the president's feet because he's become your boogeyman. But this has been driven by the Texas representation in the state legislature. This has been driven by the governor of the state of Texas. Again, a Republican who holds the majority and represents the majority opinion. You've done something that you say is constitutional, which I would suggest is pretty radical, leaving your office, abandoning your office, in defense of a minority point of view that has been done in several of these other states where your party has the majority. It's a little bit like taking your basketball and going home when you don't like the way it's played.
What?
But when you're winning in Illinois, you're happy to play by these rules.
James Talarico doesn't represent Illinois, you stupid son of a bitch. He's a state representative, and the state is Texas, number one. Number two, what Illinois has done, and Illinois is gerrymandered, but Republicans gerrymander far more often and far more egregiously, and Illinois' gerrymander comes at the end of censuses. It's not just that Democrats do it less and do it less egregiously. It's that also when they do redistrict, they play by the rules. Republicans are breaking the rules and trying to change them. They are breaking the rules to change the rules with this mid-decade redistricting. And do you even hear what he says? He's like, you say what you're doing, fleeing Texas so as to deny them a quorum sufficient to pass these gerrymandered maps. You say it's constitutional, but I think it's radical. Well, these two things are not mutually exclusive. The Constitution permits a lot of the federal Constitution permits a lot of radical things. State constitutions do as well. The fact that it's radical to you doesn't mean that he's wrong for having done it. I would argue it's radical for Texas Republicans to violate these norms that they're doing here and doing mid-decade redistricting at the naked, transparent request of Donald Trump to steal 5 seats from Democrats. But you don't give a shit about that because when you like the radical move, it's okay. But again, Texas Democrats should just do whatever you want.
Again, I've condemned all gerrymandering across the country. And in fact, when Democrats had a majority in Congress, they voted to ban gerrymandering in every state, red states and blue states. Do you know how many Republican members of Congress joined them in that effort?
Which one? I'm sorry. Which state did you just refer to?
I'm asking, do you know how many Republicans joined Democrats in the U.S. Congress to ban gerrymandering? All the Democrats voted for it. 0 Republicans voted for it. 0.
It's an odd.
So
it's an odd.
You can spare me the both sides rhetoric.
Love it. He's right. The For the People Act would have banned partisan gerrymandering in red states and blue states. Democrats were willing to disarm as long as Republicans disarmed as well. And then there would have been competitive elections everywhere. Republicans opposed it. Period. So again, the moral superiority is clearly with the Democrats on this issue, not the Republicans, and he's right to shut that down.
It's clearly one side that is trying to rig the rules in the middle of the game. This is like 2 football teams coming out of the locker room at halftime, and the team that's ahead says they want to change the rules for the second half so they can win the game. All of us would be throwing food at the TV if that happened. We don't accept cheating in our politics. We don't accept cheating in our relationships. We shouldn't accept cheating in our elections.
Love it. Love it. And Will Cain has nothing for it. We're going to play one last clip here where he has to, again, end the conversation for time. But you can just see he's totally outclassed on this issue. And again, it's not because Will Cain is stupid. It's because Will Cain has chosen to subordinate his principles to Donald Trump. And Trump is morally and intellectually inferior in all cases, in all instances, against every elected Democrat. And this is ultimately what that creates, is it puts smart people like Will Cain in the position of having to go, well, would you just please like grade Trump on a curve? Please? No, Will, no, we're not going to do that.
In my view, Representative, you gave the ball game analogy. In my view, what has happened here is you've done something in certain states, and you don't like it when it's done in Republican states. And now you're saying you've done the same thing as us. You've done the same thing as us, and we are going to, by the way, if you do it, we're going to ratchet it up even more, in the words of Gavin Newsom.
My party has never gerrymandered in the middle of the decade at the request of the President of the United States, nor would we. The only way this is going to happen in blue states is if Texas executes this power grab. You mentioned Massachusetts. Right. Do you know the party of the governor that signed that map into law? He was a Republican. It was a Republican governor that signed that map into law. So I just want to be clear with our facts, and I don't want to muddy the waters. All of us, whether we're Democrats, independents, or Republicans, we should stand up to politicians who don't want to face accountability at the ballot box. That's exactly what's happening here. And I asked you, if Republican policies are popular, why do they need to redraw these maps? Why can't they just run on their policies?
I'm getting wrapped on time.
And then we're right back to where we started. But yeah, that's great. I mean, listen. Again, I'm sorry, it's just the case. Republicans gerrymander more frequently, they gerrymander more egregiously, and they're much more willing to bend and twist norms in order to facilitate these things. Democrats have made the only attempts at federal and state levels to ban partisan gerrymandering. They did it with the nonpartisan redistricting committee in New York and California. You don't see red states do that. And at the federal level, you saw attempts by Democrats to ban partisan gerrymandering nationwide. The two sides are not the same. Democrats are morally superior when it comes to gerrymandering, and anyone who tells you otherwise is a fucking liar or an idiot. So that was an embarrassing performance by Will Cain in this debate, and I understand why he had to appeal to time and had to abruptly end the debate with James Talarico. But that's exactly how it goes. Even the smartest MAGAs just simply caught flat-footed when it comes to defending Trump on these issues. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.